Another PVZ. I like this. More PVZs. Bring it on.
Yeah, for sure. It's that matchup that is really fun to watch, but you sort of, I don't know, for me at least, it's kind of like that dark horse one that I just forget about every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Or PvP. That's another nasty one.
Yeah. I love PvP, man. Casting
PvP
it,
is so crazy.
I hate playing it, but I love casting it. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get this started here on King Sejong Station. This is set number 6. Yes, this is the 6th game we're casting.
Yep.
And right now it is 5-1 for all inspiration. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce the yellow Protoss in the bottom right corner of King Sejong Station. It's Team Composites Waste.
Nice. This is our 6th game, but it is actually 4-1 right now in favor of Team All Inspiration. This will be the 6th game to determine whether it's going to be 4-2 or 5-1. Moving on into the 7th game, spawning at the top left corner of King Sejong Station. It is the green Zerg player, also my co-caster. Give it up for All Inspiration's gdoggcasey.
Woo! I got the overlay in time.
I was going to say, shameless plug. Super shameless.
I just checked and I was like, oh crap, I forgot the overlay again, so I went and fixed it just in time. We didn't miss anything.
Now, just to keep the playing grounds fair, let's not put all the focus on the All Inspiration player. We do want to give respect, and we need to give some attention to Team Composites Waste while there is a dog going apeshit in the background. But yes, the yellow Protoss player. Hope to see some fireworks, and no smashing on my All Inspiration brothers, but I really hope to see a close game because that's what makes my job as a caster certainly more enjoyable than just hand me over throws.
Yeah,
so
definitely. Well, luckily we haven't
see a good game.
Even though Allin has such a big lead at the moment, and thanks for correcting me, they're 4-1. So even though we have such a big lead in terms of games played, each and every game has been pretty close. I mean, I think J-Ro's game was probably the most one-sided.
Kisoso's game, it was pretty one-sided, but it wasn't for being outplayed. It was split-second decision-making that just wasn't there.
Yeah, right. Well, it didn't seem like a roll as much as as some other games can seem like. So.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, we do have the fast expansion going down here for Waste. He got it down before the Cybercore there.
I like Waste, though. He's scouting the 3rd to make sure that Zerg didn't take an ultra-fast 3-base like sometimes they tend to do, and I think he's just going to scout to see when that creep comes out so that he's going to be able to pinpoint exactly when that natural's finished. He's going to be able to tell the timing of the pool.
Yeah, and that drone is going around here looking like he's going to try to think about setting up a 3rd base here. But no, 2 queens get made instead. 4 lings on the way.
I like this. This is a very safe, very nice approach coming out of Waste here because he's got the Forge coming out. He's got the Psycore coming out. I don't know if I agree with the position of that Psycore. I mean, it is sort of exposed. The concave around it does give it a little bit more surface area for lings. But we'll have to see exactly how that plays. But he's going to go ahead and do more more gateways for the wall, and most likely going to put a cannon behind the wall to sort of secure that, leaving a little bit big of a gap. That's going to take 2 zealots, I think, to make that gap.
Oh yeah, the probe just proved it there. Yeah, he's going to drop a pylon instead.
Mm-hmm.
So the wall is there. It's not the strongest wall off, but it is a wall off. It's going to hold off 4 lings at least.
Yeah, it's not. I like how he sort of positioned the weakest structure there, which is the pylon, just a little bit regressed into the base. Not going to give it too much of a surface damage. Meanwhile, we don't have any gases coming out from our Zerg player at the top left. Onto base, droning up the natural. I think this is going to be a all signs point to some sort of roach play. Meanwhile, that drone at the 3rd, I was going to say it's just chilling, enjoying the little gas wisps coming out of the Vespene geysers, but it's going to go ahead and drop into a hatchery as ordered by the Overmind. Well, I guess
a little bit late
kind
there.
of dead here, yeah, but yeah, late 3rd, but that's okay. As long as you're staying 1 base ahead of the Protoss, you can kind of do what you need to. But let's not forget about the quality, I should say, of damage that 2-base Protoss can do. Protoss can do some really, really vicious things on two bases, such as we're about to see here now. I mean, this is even like a one base play. We're doing the Mothership Core, Stalker, Zealot harassment, which is kind of something to be feared and respected. At least it's not something to be taken lightly. This Stalker is going to pressure that third. Going to try and get the deny on the third. Going to force a little bit of units out of Casey here if he wants to keep that third alive.
Yeah, and not only that, but I remember my thought process here was like, oh shit, he's moving out with his Mothership Core, Stalker, and Zealot. I could have sworn there was going to be a pylon somewhere that I hadn't scouted.
But look at this now. I mean, and Waste is he's doing what he needs to do. If he's not going to end up taking out this third, which it doesn't look like he's going to with this herd of lings, look at the worker count. He evened up the worker count, and he was even ahead for a little bit. Going to go ahead and use the mass recall. He did the mind damage because now these lings, what are they going to do? They're just there.
Yep.
They're useless in the early game. It's 8 minutes, and he's got a bunch of lings that he can't readily use. I mean, that's 20 lings. Meanwhile, we have a Sentry and a Protoss gearing up to take their third. The damage wasn't necessarily physically done. It didn't cost any units, technically now, but it's going to cost Casey a little bit longer in time in order to drone up that third to get full saturation.
Yeah, definitely. And not only that, it forced me to get speed first instead of lair first, which was not my plan. So it just, that's the best thing about little early attacks like this is if they're not expected, it just throws you right off your game. Even if it didn't kill any drones and it didn't kill the third, it still forced me to react well. Meanwhile, as we see here, the third base going down for Waste, and he can drop down more tech as well, more gateways coming out. And Colossi production started already.
I mean, and you sort of gotta, like I said, you have to respect that push because, yeah, it's not going to do a whole lot of damage, but that is just enough units that you have to respect it. Like, if you leave that push uncontested, it can destroy your third. So you're being forced to use those larvae to make units instead of drones, which is damage in and of itself. It's not immediate damage, but it is later damage. If it was like one Zealot or like one Stalker, you can surround a Stalker and get some surface area with like 6 lings, maybe less, eventually with speed. But with that sort of composition, you have an air assault, you have a melee assault, and you have a ranged assault. You do not want to just leave that alone because, I mean, even the health on the hatchery speaks for itself. That was 3 units, and it's almost a third health on that hatchery. So, had Casey got there just slightly later, it would not have been a pretty picture.
No. Now the Lings did run by the third here, and they did significant damage, almost as much as he did to me. Not quite, but almost.
I like this decision coming out of Casey. He's going to make a 4th base in response to that Protoss third.
Yeah, so that's usually there's kind of a key decision point there when you're Zerg and you see the third go down. You think, okay, you have to choose. Do I kill the third and do I just mass up on units, or do I just take a 4th and just prolong the game even longer, try to get ahead that way? So that's what happened there. There is a Spire going down over here, I believe. Yeah, right over by the third base. And the Hydras are going to start moving out eventually. So we'll see.
Yeah, this is... I like the wall. I like the choice of buildings for the wall at the third for Waste. One thing that he has to be careful is there is a small gap around that refinery where units can just walk in, but he needs to caution himself. Actually, I'm not. That looks like it could fit units, but I don't know for sure if units can go through there. I think they can. I'm not entirely sure though.
If it was, it would be like 1 link at a time.
Yeah, I also don't like this position of the pylon next to the 3 gates as well. That's well within Hydra range. If Hydras wanted to get damage on that pylon, they could do that. So I like this choice of this like backup pylon, this sort of secured backup pylon. Meanwhile, this massive Hydra force. Wow, I wasn't actually expecting that Hydra force to be sort of alone, but it looks like it's going to be Spire Ling, that Ling Hydra, or that Muta Hydra play, which has actually been slightly more common in PvZ or ZVP, I guess, depending on which way you swing it. And with no cannons in the main defending any of the structures, Mutas are going to have their full reign. But actually, I thought you said. Yeah, there's the Spire, and it's going to go ahead and just be there just in case he needs some air support.
Yeah, now this.
Right as I say that, 9 mutas. Okay, yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
slap me, right?
so the thing is, this Ling Hydra Force here is pretty big. It's definitely like at least 2/3 of my entire army here, and we already have 4 Colossi in the mix with range, so it's going to be very hard, even for that many units, to do too many damage to the army here. So what needs to happen is the mutas need to be very active in kind of pulling the army out of position so that the Lings and Hydras can do damage at one spot, or vice versa. If the Lings and Hydras can pull the army out of position, then the mutas can go in and kill a bunch of probes. 4th base now going down for waste here.
I do like this decision too. He went straight for the assault. He went straight for the attack upgrades. And Hydras, yes, they do a lot of damage, but they are the glass cannon of the Zerg army. They are so squishy, especially against +3 attack Colossi.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is not something you want to do. And he's actually dedicating to this. Waste is going ahead and building a second Robo, which is going to go ahead and finish, which is going to allow him for that double Colossi production. And
Yeah,
Colossi...
They're just tearing up the Hydras there. He does push the
Oh,
Hydras
God.
back. Mutas
Yeah.
are selected, though, and going in, and they're going to be able to deny this 4th.
Oh my God, that's so much. That's so much DPS. And here come the Hydras, or the mutas up to the 3rd, but 2 cannons. They're not going to be able to get the damage on those Hydra. Or oh my God, I can't talk. They're not going to be able to get the damage on the mutas that they need to. The mutas are just going to go and just smash probes and just eat them alive. And that lack of defense in the main that I was talking about early. More probes are just going to go down here. Buildings being forced to... They're not even being canceled. They're just being taken out. And Waste says, screw it. I'm rolling into your main with these Colossi, which is a just absolutely terrible idea. But good force fields. Great force fields, actually. Fantastic force fields.
He's basically rendering the Lings absolutely useless, just
Oh
tearing
my
them up.
God.
Mutas are coming back. They're taking... they flew over a bunch of Blink Stalkers there, so taking some damage.
Oh.
There's still a lot of Mutas here. But yeah, there's 78 Zerglings popping out at once here.
Oh God, and the recall was so key.
Oh my God.
Sick play.
Yeah.
Sick play.
And there's still 2 Stalkers and a Sentry here that kind of slip in unnoticed.
The crazy thing about this too is awesome is because the mothership core had to stay. It was like the one unit that had to stay alive, and Waste was able to micro it away from the Hydras and to get the recall out just in time for the mutas not to snipe it. Had the mutas sniped that mothership core, this game would be over. It just would be over. Like you cannot just... One does not simply replace 5 Colossus. And, like, I mean, there were sentries in that army too. I mean, that's a lot of gas. I would say that's a colossal amount of gas. Ha ha ha. No, that's a lot of gas. And now we're seeing High Templars being produced, and the muta count is just getting scary as hell. We got 17 mutas that just popped, and Stargate going down. But I think it's just a choice that's a little bit too late. Because mutas are just going to destroy those Colossi. I mean, this Sky Zerg army getting pretty numerous here.
Yeah, there's definitely tons of mutas. The 5th base is down as well. Waste is trying to catch up here. He's getting a 4th base. So far, I'm leaning a little bit towards thinking the game is in my favor here because we got more workers, more bases, and just so many mutas.
I was going to say we have 34 mutas. This is StarCraft math. I mean, look at the Protoss army. What can shoot up? A lot of Blink Stalkers? Yeah, but they're not AoE. Mutas are AoE. They have the glaive that bounces from targets to hit 3 targets. Yes, it is depreciated damage when it bounces off the additional targets. But yeah, 1 shots goes ahead and just denies that force, says no, you ain't getting that. And now we're going to see a lot of AoE damage come in from this 3rd. But this is
2 Warcons there, though. That's scary.
I was going to say, you don't want to approach that with those mutas bunched up like that.
Yeah, so we do see a transition happening here behind this. We got Ultras on the way, melee upgrades coming in through also from the Evo chambers. And Ultras are going to be pretty happy to deal with this Colossi Stalker army.
Yeah, and that Stalkers get a couple shots off, but who cares? I mean, takes out 2 mutas, big deal. I mean, look at gdoggcasey's bank. 4K in the bank. 2K in the bank. This man is a baller. He don't care. He's like, I'll just take 5 bases. I'll keep you on 3 bases. At this point, it's a game of attrition. It's a battle of attrition. He just wants to deny the fourth while applying a little bit of pressure, forcing the macro of research to slip. Like, yeah, 200 Protoss army is scary as hell, but this army is geared for ground damage. This army cannot contest that many mutas. I mean, 5 Archons, yeah, maybe if microed correctly. And right now, gdoggcasey's just throwing away lings. He's just like, yeah, these are minerals. I don't care. I got so much money in the bank. It's like, this is stupid. You know, 3 ultras on the field. Yeah, he can do whatever he wants now.
But it's worth noting here, we do have +3 attack for the Protoss army, and he's maxed out as well. I mean, he's getting a bank of his own, and you never ever want a Protoss to be able to get to a maxed army. I think these mutas needed to be a lot more active than they were. Waste's doing a good job with Zealot run-bys here, pulling my army apart. He's actually scouting the Ultras now, so he knows about the tech switch, which was not ideal because I didn't have as many Ultras as I really wanted at the time. Trying to keep the mutas active here.
I was going to say, I really like this choice, too. I mean, there's a lot of Blink Stalkers, like I said, which is whatever, but as any player, when you get to maxed army, there's 2 things about the maxed army that you really need to understand, is that, what does the composition look like? I mean, at this point, there's a lot of things in the Protoss army that shoot up, and there's not a whole lot of ground units that are really worth anything. I mean, now there's Ultras, but you kind of want, at this point, if you're the Zerg player, 29 mutas, 8 ultras, you kind of want Protoss to have this composition because there are no immortals. There's no immortals. Yeah, there's some sentries, but ultralisks are massive and they can just like walk through. Oh, but this is bad. Okay. Losing a couple mutas.
Oh
but
my goodness.
Whatever.
I think going, you know what, we're just sacking all the mutas here. We just want to kill as many colossi as we can.
No, and that's great. You kind of want to gear up you want to trade in a way that gets the end composition in a way that you can respond effectively. Trading the mutas for what looks to be like just an outrageous amount of ground army that doesn't die is not a bad choice. It'd be the same thing.
What happened here is that we freed up some supply for Waste, and look at what he's replacing it with. Immortals and Void Rays.
Exactly.
Very good decision there by Waste because he knows about the Ultras. And again, we're hitting the 4th base here. He just cancels it once again. So look at
fantastic.
This. Look at this. He's got 77 probes, and he's mining off of 2 bases right now.
Right. Now, this is a fantastic choice, especially out of Waste, seeing the composition and building up to replace it. But we have a problem here. I mean, Protoss is on 9 gates, which is really not enough. I mean, he's got a bank too. Yeah, he's got a pretty big bank, and it's a really scary bank as well, especially if you're Protoss with like 21 gateways, but he doesn't have that production. He only has 9 gateways. He's got 9 gateways, 2 robos, which is good, and 1 Stargate, and that's not the production that you need in order to remax as fast as Zerg can.
There are so many Ultras here, but the +3 attack is doing so much damage for Waste. I mean, to be honest, at this point, it looks like I'm making a bad decision because I'm just sort of walking the Ultras into that army. My thought process was like, I don't know how many Ultras are here. Over 8. There's like 11 4-2 Ultras that I thought should be able to just walk in here and mop things up. Oh, 2-4, my bad.
2-4. Yeah, no, and Stalkers do damage versus Armored, and, you know, Ultras are slow off creep, and it's whatever, but, I mean, what you don't want to do is you don't want to take an engagement that you can't ultimately contest what's being thrown at you, because right now, the only anti-air that Waste has, and this is such a bad position for Waste right now, with no recall in sight, he only has, you know, a few Stalkers, which is not enough to take down the mutas, but now all of a sudden we have Lings joining the fight, which... yeah, I mean, with good force fields, Colossus can just wreck ground units, but it looks like gdoggcasey doesn't care. He's going in for the kill. This is a great position for Waste, but it looks like there just might be too much. The supplies are dead even with I was going to say the gap just closed. Any window that Waste could have had just flew completely out the window with his lack of production.
Well, these 2 Immortals, though. Look at these 2 Immortals just wrecking all the Ultras.
They are living up to their name.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like, during that, I mean, it's kind of strange to cast your own play here, because knowing my thought process at the time, but it was like when that happened, I was just kind of like, what? Like, how did all of those ultras die there? There was
Something
two.
to note. Oh my god, yeah, and +3, like immortals do 65 damage a shot versus immortals. Or I'm sorry, versus what's it called? Versus ultralisks or in
Mhm.
any armored units. So just having that much, like that's like 3 times 65, that's almost 200 damage per shot with 3 immortals to ultralisks. So it doesn't matter. Like they just hurt. And now it's something to notice is that although Zerg is now what appears to be about 3 bases ahead, Zerg is now out of gas, and the supply is actually in the Protoss favor against mainly Lings, which versus Archons and Zealots aren't going to do a whole much if Waste plays this correctly,
Yeah,
which I
no,
think it looks like
they
he's
are
gonna do.
three three.
He's
Oh my
backing
god.
up this single swarm host.
Oh my god. That
God,
time warp, that was a really good time warp there. And 4 immortals and 3 archons here are just like doing
yeah.
even more damage to the ultras. And all that's
Well,
left now are lings.
it was the positioning too. It was just the positioning. I mean, the Zerg player backed ranged units into a corner with melee units.
Mhm.
Like that is not something that you want to do, especially against Archons, which do bonus versus bio, and they do splash damage against Lings, and Immortals tucked away in the back with Void Rays, which do bonus versus armored damage. So I mean, this is a fantastic position because right now, look at the banks. gdoggcasey's broke.
Yep.
He's broke. He's broke. He's 50 supply behind now. That one engagement put him behind. All he had to do was deny that fourth. But I wouldn't count gdoggcasey out just yet. He is broke, but he's still on more mining bases. The income for Protoss at 140 minerals a minute. The income is just pathetic. He needs to migrate probes over to that base once it completes.
Yeah, it looks like he
He's
is finally going to be able to get that fourth base up here. But the issue is this army he's got with Void Rays, Immortals, and Zealots. I mean,
yeah.
the huge mistake. I mean, there were mistakes made all throughout the game, as is what's usual in StarCraft. But sticking with the Zerglings here in the late game, when I mean he has Immortals, and the Immortals are what are driving me the most crazy. So I feel the Lings are a good decision for that. But obviously they can't attack Void Rays.
I mean,
Um,
I would like to see a Muta switch now because yes, Void Rays hurt, but they do bonus versus armored, and Mutas have AOE. Void Rays don't. So and that's the only thing that can shoot up. So if you could pop like 10 Mutas right now, the damage to the air units, and they didn't carry over with the upgrades, and I wasn't paying attention, but we don't have any air upgrades. But right now, this army that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger
mhm.
is just walking around the map,
And he's picking
just
off all those extra bases. So
and
now,
now we're tied on bases, and now it doesn't matter what sort of edge that gdoggcasey had with the beginning. That the just the engagements were just too inefficient.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. Now there's still an army here. A couple swarmos trying to be added in here and there. And
no, this is great.
this is where I was like, okay, you said mutas. I decided to go with hydras because I feel that hydras would do a decent amount. Although the archons are here, that kind of sucks.
Well, the
Um,
upgrades are real too, so like you got to take into consideration, and you already have the upgrades for the range. You already have the upgrades, so Hydras is not a bad choice at all. They do glass cannon damage, so
well, we'll see.
we're
This
gonna
looks like it's probably going to be the last engagement here. Ling's getting choked up here. The time warp going down, and there's no way. There's a lot of queens here, but no, he's doing a
yeah.
good job microing his units around here, and there's no way that Berserk will win this fight.
Yeah, at this point, Stalker's being added into the composition. GG is called. gdoggcasey putting up one hell of a show. Ah, close game from 6 base Zerg to 3 base Zerg to 3 base Protoss to no army Protoss. Like this is just fireworks back and forth. He did not let us down with a fantastic game 6. Gonna bring Team Composite up 2-4 against Team All Inspiration. Great game. Jeez, I
Yeah,
gotta
this
say that was probably the most action-packed one so far. Holy crap!
dude,
Great job.
my heart was pounding so hard during that game, and it's worth mentioning too that from my perspective, I just really thought I was ahead the whole time, and when I lost, I was so devastated because throughout, I mean, I was the first loss of the week for us, and it was just like, I sat here for like 10 minutes, just like head in my hands and just thinking like, what? How did I screw that up? But then when I watch a replay, you see a whole bunch of mistakes and everything starts to make a lot more sense.
And the power of Protoss and really the power of engagement because
Hmm.
I was talking about before like StarCraft math. It's kind of the same thing behind the fruit potato game where he put those tanks on the low ground. Like, yes, you could move them closer, but tanks already have this devastating range. And it's not their damage, really. That's the scary part. It's the fact that they can just get shots off from a distance while the Marines do their business. So these three tanks on that map are uncontested because of the terrain. Meanwhile, in that last engagement that we saw that you really had an edge, we have two types of melee units against three types of ranged units, all of which are in the favor of the Protoss. And it's like, unless you can reinforce that army, you don't really want to take that engagement unless you're sure it can die.
Yeah.
And you had that game up until that point, and like I said, it's the power of Protoss. I mean, and I'm reading the chat now, and there's some comments. Thank God, Waste doesn't believe in the power of Psystorm because that, sir, is real. I
That would have
mean,
hurt, yeah.
that would have hurt, but great
Yeah.
job, fantastic game, super excited. I'm on the edge of my chair right now.
All right, well, that being said, let's go ahead and put a halt to your excitement as we set up a 10-minute break here just to get the next replay set up, and we'll be back to you guys very shortly.
Fantastic. See you guys in a second.